So, hello everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Chris. I'm the COO here, working on Infinite Fleet. So, I've been in China for about the past 8 years, working in various sort of operations and management roles. And I came over to work in video games about 3 years ago, starting at Pixelmatic. And yeah, I'm a massive video game nerd, bit of a geek, ex-streamer. We used to stream some Vainglory, and I've been on a few Chinese streams as well. And now I'm here to, make Infinite Fleet a fantastic game.
And my name is Hope. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. My big interests right now are Bitcoin and video games. And, I'm fortunate enough to be working on Infinite Fleet, which is at the intersection of these two arenas. I actually got into crypto and Bitcoin 4 years ago because I was traveling a lot, and I was trying to send funds to myself across borders, but it was very difficult with banks. So that's where I kind of started learning about this whole thing. And in my spare time, I'm trying to not to play too many games now because real life sort of gets in the way. But I'm a big fan of strategy games like Total War, Age of Empires, this sort of thing. So yeah, excited to talk to you guys and Arnab about Infinite Fleet today.
You took an extended lunch break today playing Total War Warhammer, so
yeah,
you're lying basically. You're still playing hard.
Yeah.
For the audience, we just recently announced on STOKR the game Infinite Fleet that will conduct the STO in the coming months. So why not Chris and Hope just go ahead and tell us what is about Infinite Fleet? What is the game about?
Sure thing. Yeah, absolutely. So Infinite Fleet, it's a sci-fi anime-style MMO strategy game. So when we say MMO, we mean massively multiplayer online. So you can think of things like World of Warcraft, EV Online, all these kind of really big games that have really strong communities, thousands, tens of thousands of players playing together. But in our game, you take control of these gigantic sort of battle fortress spaceships, kilometer-long sort of things, and an entire fleet of them, actually, with other people. And you cooperatively play together to fight back against an alien threat. So the idea is we're mixing in the strategy elements, classic RTS elements like base building and the economy and all this kind of thing, which happens on the MMO social level. And then we have intense cooperative battles where we're fighting against these aliens. And the key thing is that players will be able to play together. So 3-5 players fighting against an enemy. And they have these fleets that they can customize and swap parts and really dig in and get some interesting combinations, And the sort of one of the sort of big USPs or the big features of this game is what we call the directed narrative. So what happens in the game, what the players do, will impact the overarching storyline. So an example I like to use is if the aliens come to the solar system and try to, destroy Earth or something, then the community of players all have to band together, fight back the alien threat. But if they fail, then Earth is going to be, wiped out, destroyed, and that's going to be the remaining case for the rest of the game's future, for the history of the game as such. And so, we really want to pull players into this social community where what they do has impact. Like what they actually that you're really aiming to make an impact and have some volition in what you do. And that's the overall, the basics. But on the anime style as well, the artwork's great because we're really tapping into that nostalgic sort of 80s classic anime style, like, classic Transformers, Macross, Gundam, all those kind of great franchises. We're kind of tapping into that a little bit and really, making something cool.
Yes, I think whenever you talk about Amine, all the first thing I visualize is the Dragon Ball Z, the old series, old version of Dragon Ball Z, Amine characters, and then you mention about strategy game, then I think of Age of Empires. And when you talk about space, now EVE Online, and now you're trying to bring all these three components with Infinite Fleet, right?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, we're not crossing Dragon Ball Z with Age of Empires, because that would be an insane mismatch. I'm not going to say, oh no, that would be crazy. But, you know, interesting game idea. But that's basically it. Yeah, so you're taking classic games like Age of Empires or something, you know, where you're building bases and such like. That's going to be very much the macro level. So players will build defense platforms, space stations, all this kind of thing. But then they'll go into these battle instances later to, you know, fight in a closed arena as such. Yeah.
Perfect. And how far are you with the game production right now and the development process?
Yeah, so basically we're aiming for the alpha to come out at the end of this year. We've got a lot of exciting things happening. You know, we've got some the models flying around in some really great skyboxes right now, working on combat, tweaking some balance and all that kind of stuff. But we're looking end of the year, people should be able to get their hands on it. Closed alpha, of course. Certain people will be able to get their hands on it.
Great.
So make sure to sign up to our newsletter.
That's good. There will be always a link to the newsletter below, so please feel free to sign up for that. On the team side, I think new games always require a very strong team. And what I've heard from you offline, that you have a fantastic team. Why not you say something about your team that is working behind the Infinite Fleet?
Yeah, we've really gathered an awesome team, actually. Obviously, we're led by Samson Mao, right? So his background is mostly in production and game design. He's worked on some incredible games like Company of Heroes. He also did the Smurfs & Co. as well, which was like a massively successful Ubisoft game. And of course, he has the crypto side as well. I think Hope will talk a little bit about that later. But in terms of the game itself, we've got Jason Lee, who's our Chief Creative Officer. And Jason's background is in working on real AAA strategy games, working at Relic. So you mentioned Age of Empires. We actually kind of stole him a little bit from Relic. He was working on Age of Empires 4. We did a good job. Yeah. I think they're going to be pretty angry with us over there because he's great. But he was one of the design leads in Age of Empires 4, which is obviously a massively anticipated game that should be coming out, within the next year or so. And also he worked on Company of Heroes and Warhammer franchise as well. And our game design director is Damon Gautier. So Damon, he works more on the mechanics of the game and the real sort of systems of it. He's a very systems-driven guy, real genius, He's been working in the industry, I think, 20 years. He was in the original Homeworld franchise team. So Homeworld is, if anyone's watching knows this, it's an old sci-fi game, RTS game, which is the highest ranked space game on Metacritic at the moment, I believe. I have to check that out, but I'm pretty sure it is. And he's worked on a bunch of other, mobile MMO games before. He's also been at BioWare. So yeah, real veteran. And, we also have Wayne Wong Chong. He's the director of art. So he comes from a technical art background. He's laid down the foundation of our anime style and everything. And he's been in this space, this sort of 3D modeling and technical art space since it really started, like 21, 22 years ago with, old TV shows like Reboot, which was one of the first real sort of Pixar style 3D TV shows. So he came from, TV production, show production, and then to games like FIFA, of course, which I'm sure everyone knows. Warhammer franchise again, like Dawn of War, which I think is one of the most critically acclaimed war games. And really riding us hard and making us make sure that Infinite Fleet is an incredible game. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Chris. It's a fascinating team that you have, and it's great to bring all this together because you require an impressive amount of knowledge and capacity to develop this kind of games, right? For the audience, if you have any questions, please also feel free to add in the questions. We will take it one by one. Now, coming to the next point, I think the one a very crucial element of infinite fleet game is the blockchain component to it, right? And why not you just, I think Hope will be much more interested in that point. What is the relation between the blockchain and infinite fleet and how it works together?
Right. So obviously, all of us here on this call are big proponents for blockchain tech and also for decentralized finance and all these things, right? Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and personally, I think these are two of the big technological trends going to the next 5-10 years. Obviously, crypto with Bitcoin as a form of money that's widely recognized now worldwide, as well as gaming as as not only a form of entertainment, but now getting into competitive gaming and all these things. It's becoming like a sport and also a second form of life for a lot of people, right? Which is fine, so the world is digitizing, and it only makes sense for these things to eventually be connected, because actually a lot of the early adopters for Bitcoin and for crypto were actually hardcore gamers, because these people were the people that were playing like StarCraft online since the early 2000s, late 90s, whatever. And these people have basically they've had a history of understanding for digital assets, for virtual things that we have on the computer, which are worth something, right? So I think now it makes sense for these things to come together. And following the big boom in crypto over the last few years, obviously a lot of people have come into the space. They've tried to do blockchain games, right? So if you go on Google now and search for blockchain games, you'll find a lot of websites aggregating information or listing different blockchain game projects that are in the works. But however, the problem with that so far is there hasn't really been any blockchain game that's really, captured any sort of a meaningful user base or been actually successful, right? The reason is most of these projects have been doing it the wrong way, because they've been trying to use blockchain as some sort of, advanced database rather than for its most unique selling points, which are decentralization and transparency as a ledger for recording transactions, right? So a lot of people building these so-called blockchain games have been trying to put too much on the blockchain, which as a result makes the blockchain run very slowly. For example, for those who are familiar with Ethereum, there was this thing called CryptoKitties about 3 years ago, which basically I think at one point it had like 2,000 users active at the same time, and that basically crashed the whole network. Like you couldn't send Ethereum to other people for 3 or 4 days, right? So there's inherent limitations to blockchain, and as a result, a lot of those implementations so far have been limited to more about the authenticity of your digital assets. So like, if you have this rare sword, right, you can sort of assign it a unique ID or issue a unique token for it on the blockchain. Then you have this proof of authenticity that this is the only sword in this game and you're the owner of it, right? So I mean, it's a good concept, but that doesn't help the fact that the inherent game itself is very limited, right? You're just basically making some transactions on the chain, trading a card between me and you, and that's basically the game. So I think this is the main reason blockchain gaming hasn't taken off, because those games just haven't had any depth. So the way we're approaching it is very different, and we are basically building an MMO game in the traditional sense, in that the game itself won't be relying on the blockchain to run, right? So we'll have the depth of the experience, we'll have the high quality graphics, we'll have the high frame rates and all these things. And that can host World of Warcraft or EVE Online, whatever. But we are digging into blockchain for its monetary component, which is, in my opinion, the most valuable addition, right? So we, for our game, the in-game gold or the in-game currency for the game, we're actually using a crypto asset for that, a cryptocurrency for that, right? So if you think about World of Warcraft gold, where people are, killing monsters and whatever and accumulating this gold, then they use it to buy better armor or better equipment. So instead of just a in-game asset, we're actually putting this on the blockchain. So players will have the power of moving these assets outside of the game, right? This will bring a lot of power and incentive to players. Basically, it should entice players to come and play, because they'll actually earn some sort of value from that. And then if you think about it, let's assume that 5 years from now, Infinite Fleet has 1 million players, and everyone is playing, earning some in-game currency, and there's a vibrant P2P marketplace where they can trade stuff with each other. Then there's going to be inherent value for the currency itself. There's going to be market value discovery, right? Yeah. So and then they should be able to convert that to other crypto assets, BTC, whatever. So this whole digital network of assets and value is basically becoming frictionless. So that's our vision.
Yes, I think I totally understand. This is because the background of how I also came to crypto is gaming. I just mentioned, I think, Hope, when we met before, that I used to convert Steam keys into Bitcoin at one point of time. So there is a huge community requirement technically over here, where there's a, how we can connect these assets in the game with the crypto assets, and that the value comes if I play the game, I can monetize my gaming time that I'm spending there, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Now you have an in-game currency in your gaming ecosystem, right? And what you're also planning to do a securities token. And I think there are a lot of questions we found also in social media is, what is the difference between these two tokens in your ecosystem?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when we say we're gonna have a security token, whatever, a lot of people have been confused by that, because they just assume all tokens are the same, but not all tokens are the same, right? So you have these, what those ICO, so-called ICO tokens that we saw like in 2017 or 2018. They're basically there were no obligations to investors or buyers of those, right? You basically, anyone can just send in Ethereum to the sellers, and you can buy them, and there's no obligations. But obviously a lot of people have lost some money or whatever from that, so that's kind of being phased out now. And security tokens, on the other hand, are very different, because they're a regulated financial instrument, right? So they're actually a regulated security. You guys are all lawyers, obviously you have a lot of knowledge and background on this side, but basically a security token in this sense is just a crypto version of a registered security. For example, an equity in a company, or debt instrument, right? So what we're doing is we have basically two totally different things. We have the thing I talked about earlier, which is the in-game token, which is the in-game currency. That's only for the game and for players to earn when they're playing the game. It has nothing to do with, STOKR platform, whatever. But we also have this security token, which will be like basically raising funding through selling an equity. But this equity is in the form of a token which is on the blockchain, meaning that it's going to be part of the blockchain system. And again, that's the whole fundamental vision behind STOKR, behind you guys, right? Is you visualize a future financial system where we're integrating a lot of the traditional assets onto the blockchain, so that everything can be more seamless, can be more transparent, and can be more efficient, right? Because right now, I mean, if you want to buy a stock or whatever, you have to sign up to a stock brokerage. You have to wire money from your bank into the broker's account, usually via some American settlement bank, right? And then you have to, buy a share, which actually you're buying indirectly from the broker who is buying from someone else. And you have all these middlemen, all these steps. It's slow, and it gives the user a lot of fees. So we're just migrating everything onto
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, please.
Actually, so now I was talking earlier about the a lot of other blockchain games doing this NFT thing, right? Non-fungible tokens, so tokenizing unique items. For us, that's not one of our main priorities, because again, our main priority is to have a massive multiplayer game that's fully functional, and people can play for decades, right? And we're utilizing blockchain for the actual monetary system. But we have been considering the idea of adding some sort of unique elements inside the game to the virtual items, assets in the game, like spaceships, right? So what we're working on right now is we're implementing what's called a timestamping system for the ships that we will be releasing in the game, right? So there's going to be a registry of ships, and every ship is going to be unique. So every ship is going to have its own unique ID. And what happens is whenever a ship is transacted, let's say the ship goes from us, the developer, goes to one of the players, that transaction is going to be recorded in the ledger, in the blockchain, basically, right? So we're going to timestamp that onto the liquid network, basically. So you always have an immutable record of every ship, right? So again, if I take the same example, let's say 5 years from now, there's 1 million players, and you can, if you have like 3 ships, you can basically check the history of these ships. You can see, who's owned it before and what it was traded for, right? So we'll have that unique element, but it's a little bit different.
I think it's kind of cool actually, because you can imagine like Ninja had this ship before or something like that. It took part in the Battle of Earth or something. I think there's some you have this like historical record of this sort of relic of an item that you've just bought, right? Which is an element of the blockchain in games that I do find quite exciting. Actually, I do find that quite interesting.
Yeah, and if you think of it from the competitive elements, like the esport kind of angle, maybe there will be some really famous players that once owned the ship, right? So that could have some sort of even celebrity value, depending on how big the competitive gaming landscape gets for the game.
You're welcome.
Yes, I think it was a very important question. And to be honest, like when I used to play Counter-Strike, I remember those daggers, you don't know the authenticity of those daggers, and people try to cheat each other. So I think that's a big solution that you guys are providing over here. Now, one question which is, I see there's also another question over there, a follow-up question. Will the ownership of ships and assets be able to enhance the ship or asset, hence increase effectiveness and value?
Absolutely, yes. So basically, the people who are going to play this game, generally speaking, are going to be sci-fi nerds, right? Like me, like Hope, but he doesn't like to admit it. And what sci-fi nerds like to do is to get into these things, look at the blueprints, pull things out, add things on, and so on and so forth. And when you're playing MMOs, you go across a galaxy, you take part in battles, you do participate in this kind of thing. And absolutely, yeah. In short to your answer, you're going to be able to take this little, junker ship and make it into something spectacular, of course. Yeah.
Yes, I think now a very interesting question also is we discussed in the past, and when we announced our partnership on Twitter, a lot of people asked why Liquid and why you chose Liquid to issue both security tokens and utility tokens. And I think you guys have to give the answer now. Why Liquid?
Yeah, why Liquid?
I'll leave that to you. Yeah.
Why Liquid? Yeah.
I mean that's a pretty easy one, to be honest. Okay, but so basically, I mean, obviously, again, we're all big believers of Bitcoin. Obviously, we have all these different blockchains, right? But we love Bitcoin because Bitcoin has established itself as an alternative form of money and a digital form of store of value, right? So obviously, I mean, if you check the trading prices and stuff, Bitcoin is worth $7,000. So it's not a joke anymore. It's not like a secret internet money for cypherpunks back 10 years ago, right? So now it's quite mainstream, and it looks like it's going to stay, especially now, obviously with the whole COVID situation, with all the central banks and governments printing a lot of money to give stimulus to the economy, right? So Bitcoin is with all these things that are happening, Bitcoin is establishing itself as a fairly mainstream alternative currency nowadays. And because it's completely digital, we can basically send it from anywhere, peer to peer, without any sort of third party, without any sort of border restrictions or whatever, right? which makes it very useful for the future that we're going to have, which is everything digitized, basically, right? So, if you think about, a lot of people are very hard believers in gold, right? Because whenever there's a crisis, people will try to buy gold. But the problem with gold is most people, you can't really get it. Like the bank won't give it to you, or they don't have any actually physical gold in stock. So you can't actually get your hands on any. And if you try to buy and sell, you have to carry these big blocks of metal all the time, right? So Bitcoin makes that very easy because it's digital. And, for us to have this future where Bitcoin is one of the, common currencies that people use to settle exchanges online, then it naturally makes sense to have different layers of sort of financial products and financial system built on top of it, right? Because again, if I go back to the buying stocks example, if you're buying stocks, chances are you're going to have to, if you're buying US stocks, chances are you're going to have to switch your local currency to US dollar and then buy it on some US exchange, right? So it's the same with Bitcoin. For Bitcoin to be a settlement currency on the internet, it makes sense to have a bunch of different things that go on top of it where we can exchange value, and we can just simply settle that with BTC. And Liquid Network is, as some of you probably know, it's being developed by Blockstream, which is a company that builds technology for Bitcoin, and it's what's called a second layer solution. So basically, it's built to solve some of the problems that you experience with the Bitcoin blockchain itself, which can be slow for transactions and has limitations in terms of scalability, right? It's just a small cost to pay for the security of the network. So Liquid on layer 2 basically it sacrifices certain components of decentralization in exchange of faster transactions and confidential transactions. So basically it's designed for people to make high frequency transactions, either between exchanges, traders, or to move financial assets like buying and selling stocks, security tokens, for example, right? So, you can basically think of security tokens as a blockchain version of stocks or whatever, right? So, so by issuing our company stock or security token on Liquid, we can buy and sell, exchange peer-to-peer directly, very quickly, under the legal protection of our local guidances, right? Because it's a security, so it's protected by law, and then we can basically settle all the payments and stuff in BTC. So the whole ecosystem is there, and it's frictionless, and it's removes a lot of the inefficiencies. But obviously, you guys also, I know you guys also work with Ethereum, so there's also people doing other tokens on Ethereum, right? But for us, we think Bitcoin is the biggest, the most robust blockchain, the most secure and most decentralized. So for us, we just have more faith in the BTC ecosystem. So we're building on top of that.
I think it's totally like Chris. I think you perfectly answered the question. Ethereum provides some flexibility, and I think for a long time Bitcoin lacked that. But definitely with Blockstream's initiatives and other players coming in with Lightning, Liquid, you are bridging the gap, and I think the gap now has become too narrow, which was not there before. And definitely Bitcoin has more robustness and the censorship resistancy, which I would say in Ethereum somewhere it's there, but Bitcoin has its much more in depth. And when we're talking, this week we are in a very unique position where the oil price went negative and the Bitcoin price is above 5,000 euro, right? So we are in a very unique situation right now where we cannot deny the presence of Bitcoin anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the confidential transaction that the Liquid has given to the finance world and to the STO world will be required, and Ethereum is trying to do like this similar, but the cost of doing which we also face, right? And that is something I think for STOKR also to choose Liquid as an alternative solution for issuing STO is the same thing. The first is the Bitcoin as a core layer, and the second is a confidential transaction. Is the financial market will require that kind of transactions.
Yes, and I think for a lot of people, looking at the crypto markets, right? There's like thousands of different coins out there, whatever, right?
Yes.
Different blockchains, people making like Neo, EOS, all these different blockchains, whatever. But I think fundamentally the value proposition of Bitcoin is to serve as another form of money, as a representation of value, right? So for these things, when it comes to something with one monetary value, the value tends to accrue into one network, right? Because basically the biggest and most reliable network. Because I mean, it's like currency, fiat currencies, right? Everybody wants to hold US dollar. You know, if you're from a country like Mongolia or Venezuela, for example, right? You don't trust your local currency. So it's the same. Like if there is no widespread belief in this asset, then you know people won't have any faith in it, right? Then people won't use it. So Bitcoin has really had this growth of network effects of people believing in it, and it's very hard to go in the reverse direction.
I think there are now, Hope, there are two questions which I can see on the chat. One question talks about what is the break-even point, when you can expect the break-even point for your game, Infinite Fleet. If you would like to answer that question, please feel free on the financial part of your business and where do you see your company can be.
I think in private. I think for those questions more related to the project, and projections and things like that, investment, maybe we can discuss that more in private.
Perfect. No, I think this is the first of the webinar that we are doing, right?
Yeah,
so the next webinar,
we can approach that. Yeah.
Definitely. Sure. I think that this is the first webinar where we are just talking about the games, and I understand your enthusiasm also to share it. So we can also wait for the next webinar, and we can do it maybe there, much more detailed.
Certainly.
Now there is another question from Michael. I can see it talks about, will the player own the items they purchase?
That's a good question. Ownership. It depends how you define ownership in a way, right? I mean, so I think ownership comes into things a lot when you talk about blockchain games, because I think a lot of blockchain games talk about this, you know, you own the assets. This is really, you know, your thing. It's on the blockchain. It's your token. No one can take that away from you. And there's an element of that which is true, but at the end of the day, your item, your digital item, will be rendered by the, you know, by us, by a company, by a video game company. So if you go like right now to a blockchain game like you know, Gods Unchained or whatever, they have cards and things, and absolutely, you know, you can buy these NFTs, which, and in some way you have that ownership, that token, but then you run into an issue, because firstly, on their terms and conditions, if you look at them, you don't really have ownership. Actually, they can change that asset, you know. So, you know, in esports or something, they could ban it. They can change the statistics of such an item or something like that. Then the developers need to be able to do that, because if they don't, then the game cannot be competitive anymore, because the meta game just gets out of control and people just find ways to exploit it. If you can't change those statistics, the game will break. So that's a real problem. So in answer to your question, not in the sense of the blockchain game where you own, you know, you really own it, because at the end of the day, your spaceship is going to be rendered within our game, right? That's not our goal. But, you know, I mean, we have the ledger of course it is, you know, you buy it, it's yours from a contractual perspective, yes, but you just don't own the IP of it or something like this, or the art or anything. That's not yours, right? Mm-hmm. But you can play with it.
Yeah, I think in that sense, it's more or less the same as most other games.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, what the in-game item you have will always be in-game, right? Because otherwise, you can't really play it. You can't really use it anyways. So it's just in your account in the game.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a bit of a false narrative actually in a lot of blockchain games. That's saying it's real ownership. In most cases, I think the terms and conditions usually counter that, what they say.
Yeah, because if you strip off the fat, you know, like if CryptoKitties suddenly sees the development stuff, the ERC20 token, right?
Yeah.
You can't really do anything.
Which is useless. Which is totally useless.
Just an ERC20 token with a 3-letter symbol, probably. So.
Yes. Well, I think it is a perfect good example of that, because a lot of people, when they talk about the gaming assets ownership, what is the value of the gaming asset ownership, until unless you became something like, you know, Dragon Ball Z, that you have the collectibles, where the collectibles have a value right over there. It is a different ecosystem over there. Now let's come to the last question. I think we are also nearing the end of this webinar. And the last question is the most obvious question of the month, I would say. Every webinar talks about COVID-19 and where do you see the gaming industry is going, and where do you see that your business is going in the coming days? How it's going to impact? And you're based in Shanghai, so that's a very good insight that you can provide to us who are sitting in European market, like what you are expecting in China and what we can expect in the coming days, and where do you see the industry is moving as a whole?
Well, the video game industry, I think it's been very robust through this whole thing. You know, a lot of stocks have outperformed, right?
Yeah, if you look at the indexes of like video game and esports companies, or even the individual video game company stocks, they've all actually done better than the SP 500 index as a whole. You know, in March since the big crash, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like we spoke about earlier, this is very much a trend for the near future. Is everything going more and more digital? And now I think this pandemic made people realize that, you know, if you're going to stay home all the time, and then you better do everything online, right? So people are, yeah, I mean, I know you guys are having Zoom calls all the time with the whole team, and you know, taking screenshots and stuff, and and you know, people are playing games and playing more and more games. People are ordering groceries online, everything. So I think the trend is very positive despite what's happening in our world. And then, yeah, I mean, in terms of how the virus has affected us, maybe Chris, you can speak about it.
It's been really a minimal effect on us, to be honest. If anything, it's actually been quite positive. I don't want to say that, obviously, because it's a terrible, terrible, horrible thing. But for just us and our business, there's a lot of things that we realize, you know, that we can do this thing remotely. And you know, of course, the first week or two was a little, you know, tough to get used to and get the systems in place and the workflows and things. But really, we've learned that, yeah, we can work remotely, and this company is robust to go through any sort of situations like that, and we can adapt. And I think certainly for a lot of our staff, to be honest, I think they enjoyed it. You know, I think, you know what I mean? Like,
most of the developers definitely, because I mean, they're code monkeys. They're happy to look at their monitor. Doesn't matter if it's sitting in the office or sitting in their dark room, right?
Yeah,
and it's probably better at home because they can eat for cheaper, for example.
Yeah, indeed. No, it's really, it hasn't really touched us, to be honest. We're still hitting through our sprint goals. We're still on the deadlines. You know, for our journey, for our roadmap. We're hitting those things at our stride, and we haven't had too much impact.
I think it's kind of served as a, you know, as a factor for kind of actually pushing us to improve our systems, our production, our workflow, and everything, right? To be efficient while working remotely. But with that said, though, we're back in the office now. So as you can see behind us, this is the office we have in Shanghai. We're back in the office now, and yeah, I mean, I think life is getting pretty much back to normal here now.
Not wearing face masks.
Yeah.
We're not really social distancing.
I think in terms of the pandemic, I think in Europe and North America, it's kind of maybe a month or a month and a half behind in terms of the effects, right? So I think in Europe the peak has passed as well, based on the numbers that we see. So
certainly hope so, yeah.
And summer's coming, so I think things are getting better.
Yeah, I think the summer argument, I'm still a bit in, I cannot digest that, because in India, you know, the summer is there, but still numbers are rising. But I see that things are coming under control in a lot of countries in Europe, and hopefully Italy, Spain, and the countries in Europe and France, those who have suffered the most, they recover in the coming days faster.
I heard in Germany they just enforced mandatory face masks on public transit.
Oh,
yes.
Is that true? Have you gotten out of your house and taken the U-Bahn?
Did actually, the thing is that we are now distributed the face mask for free, and the problem in Germany is that we cannot buy it easily. So hopefully the government will provide some option to buy it easily.
It's mandatory in Luxembourg to wear face masks.
Yes.
Nice.
So anybody who wants to get some face mask, please contact Tobias, because Luxembourg is providing it for free for all the audience. Also note. Yes, I think I would like that if anybody wants to follow the journey of Infinite Fleet on STOKR, please see the link below. If you're on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and if you have already signed up via Zoom, you will get an email after this, and where you can sign up for any kind of future webinars or information that we share with you. I think I can also see Emma has shared the link over here in the Zoom webinar chat. You can also click on that. And this webinar will also be recorded, so it will be also be on the YouTube, which you can refer in future. Please feel free to share with the person who are a game enthusiastic or would love to follow a gaming project from the very early days, right? And gaming project like a AAA gaming project, like Infinite Fleet. Thank you once again to both Chris and Hope for joining the webinar, and hope everybody recovers soon, and we pass on this, we pass from this COVID crisis soon in the coming days.
Yeah, thanks for hosting things, Arno. Thanks for the chat. It's been a lot of fun, and you know, everyone stay safe out there, and check us out on all the social links.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Goodbye.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks a lot also for all the audience. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.
Ciao.